Hey everyone, and welcome to my Turkish Grand Prix preview. Looking ahead to the weekend at Istanbul Park. First time Formula One is heading back to Turkey since 2011, and this weekend could be the weekend where Lewis Hamilton claims his seventh driver's title in Formula One, equaling Michael Schumacher's record of all-time drivers' championships won. Um, Quite remarkable, really, if Lewis does achieve it. And I remember when Michael Schumacher first retired from Formula One, having had his long stint at Ferrari, and we thought at the time when he'd won 7 World Drivers' Championships and also secured 91 wins in Formula One. I don't think anyone at that point thought that anyone would get close to breaking his records, and yet roll on to 2020, and Lewis Hamilton has now won the most races in Formula One, and as I mentioned just now, could equal Michael Schumacher's record of winning 7 drivers' titles. I think it's more or less a case of not if, it's when Lewis Hamilton will get that title, and if results go his way this weekend, then Lewis may find himself on seventh heaven and having won his seventh driver's title. And there's no denying that it would be a thoroughly deserved driver's title. He's been in imperious form throughout this 2020 season. And yeah, if he goes on to win his seventh driver's title, then no one can argue that he doesn't deserve it, because he does deserve it. The scary thing is, I mentioned this in my look back at the race at Imola, the fact that the titles that Lewis has won since 2014, he just seems to have got better and better as a driver. And I think with age as well, he's matured a lot as well. What he's doing off the track as well, I think is very inspiring. We know that he's really campaigning for Black Lives Matter, and also the fact that obviously he's setting up the Hamilton Commission as well. So there's a lot of great things that Lewis is doing. He's matured as a driver, as I've already said, and to potentially equal that record of number of drivers' titles won alongside and being alongside Michael Schumacher would be quite a phenomenal achievement for Lewis. And let's not forget as well, Michael Schumacher. Michael, keep fighting. We hope to see you soon, and I'm going to talk about Mick Schumacher soon. But yeah, Michael, keep fighting, and we're all thinking of you, and we hope to see you soon. And as I've already said, this could be the weekend that Lewis wins his seventh driver's title, and if he does, then no one can begrudge him, because he really deserves it. So also, we found out this week that there will be 23 races in next year's calendar for 2021. The inclusion of Saudi Arabia, Vietnam has been dropped, but also the Dutch Grand Prix. So fingers crossed we will get to see fans going to all those races. Fingers crossed the current situation around the coronavirus pandemic does improve, meaning that we will get to see fans at the majority of races next year. I think what caught my eye particularly was how close the Dutch Grand Prix will be to the Belgian Grand Prix, and I can imagine that Max Verstappen will get a lot of supporters, particularly at his home country, but also in Belgium as well. So I'm sure he'll like that. Um, but 23 races is a lot of races. It's going to be big demand on not just the drivers, but also the teams, also their personnel as well. So it's going to be a lot of time for staff, away from the families, and that will be hard. It will be a long, hard season. But obviously 23 races, like I say, it's going to be a tough season, not just the drivers, but also for the teams as well. So I'm not sure about 23 races. I think for me personally, I think that is too many races. But at the same time, we're going to new countries, and it's good to be going back to Holland. Um, and yeah, we'll see how it pans out next year. So there's a lot to look forward to next year in terms of Formula One, and yeah, 23 races in next year in 2021. Um, but going into the weekend at Turkey, I think two drivers who are under pressure. Firstly, Alexander Albon, big pressure on him now, and his Red Bull seat. Has he At the moment, if I'm being honest, I don't feel as if he's doing enough, but we'll see what he can do in these final four races of 2020. By the way, I must stress and I must congratulate Formula One on the fact that we've even got a season running. So, to get 16, 17 races this year, to be able to get that amount of races this year, I think is quite phenomenal. So, hats off to Formula One. But coming back on to Alex Albon, he's under big pressure. He really is. And if he doesn't deliver big results in these last four races, solid points finishes for Red Bull, then unfortunately I can see him losing his seat at Red Bull. Who would get replaced by? I think of people are pointing out it will either be Perez or Hulkenberg, which I agree with. So, Alex has got a big job on his hands, and it has to start. It has to start this weekend. Unfortunately, didn't work out at Imola. I just thought that getting on that podium at Mugello, that would give him some momentum going into the remaining races. But unfortunately, that hasn't happened, and he hasn't been able to kick on since then. So Alex really does need a big result this weekend, because if he doesn't, then I just think the pressure is going to continue to mount on him, and I don't think that he'll be able to. I don't think he'll be a Red Bull driver next season, which would be a real shame. And potentially, he could be out of a seat in Formula One if AlphaTauri decide um, to go with Yuki Tsunoda alongside Pierre Gasly for next season. So Alex Alex could find a situation where he's without a seat in 2021, which would be really hard on him for sure. But Alex really does need a big result this weekend at Turkey, and needs some solid results going into um, the three races after Turkey. So big pressure on him to deliver at Turkey this weekend. But there's also pressure for me. There's also pressure on Lance Stroll as well. Unfortunately, since his podium at Monza, he hasn't scored any points. Unfortunate what happened to him at Mugello. That was no fault of his own, to be fair to him, but the mistakes that he made. So in the last race at Imola on the opening lap, he lost part of his front wing after hitting the rear of Esteban Ocon. That was a mistake of his own doing, and then also we saw in the race at Portimao in Portugal, where he tried to an audacious move on Lando Norris, which didn't come off, and that resulted in him not finishing in the points, and also Lando as well not finishing in the points either. So Lance just needs to cut out those mistakes and just try and aim to get back in the points. Otmar Schaffner has already said that he's raring to go this weekend at Turkey, and yeah, like I say, Lance needs to contribute to scoring points now, because that battle for third in the constructors, I genuinely feel is going to go down to the wire at Abu Dhabi, and every point that is scored by each of those teams between now and the end of the season could make a massive difference. So Lance just needs to get us back to scoring points. And let's not forget, Lance, I think he was in the points on 7 consecutive races earlier on this season. So he's had a decent season. It's not been a terrible season at all for Lance, but it's just ever since Monza, he's just lost his way a bit. Obviously, we know that he contracted COVID-19, so he has struggled a bit, and you can have some sympathy in that sense for Lance. But he just needs to get back to scoring points, and if he can do that, then I can certainly see Racing Point finishing third in the constructors. And then what I also want to talk about, just to round up the preview, looking ahead to Turkish Grand Prix, is obviously we know the number of seats are diminishing now for the 2021 season. So you got the seat at Red Bull potentially not being decided who will be partner alongside Max Verstappen next year. The seat at AlphaTauri is yet to be decided in terms of who will partner Pierre Gasly. But we also know that 2 seats at Haas are available, with Roman Grosjean and Kevin Magnussen leaving the team at the end of this season. So the 2 names that have been touted for those seats at Haas are Mick Schumacher and also Nikita Mazepin. So with Nikita, we know that obviously his family will bring huge financial backing, which would benefit Haas. It really would. And people say that there are there've been so many drivers who've got into Formula One just because of their financial backing. In a way, if Nicky did land a seat at Haas, if he did, then potentially there is that argument. But at the same time, Nikita's had a decent season in Formula Two this year, and perhaps because of that, you could say that actually he's earned the opportunity to be in Formula One and to be at Haas next season. So no, that could potentially work for Nikita, and I think he would definitely deserve that opportunity of being at Haas. But then we come on to talk about Mick Schumacher. It would be great to see the Schumacher name back in Formula One, and would could Mick emulate what his father did in at least becoming world champion? Only time will tell. If Mick does land a seat at Haas, we saw Nico Rosberg becoming a world champion, as did his father Keke. And then we also saw Damon Hill crowned world champion in 1996, and also Damon's father Graham was crowned world champion as well. So could Mick follow in the same footsteps as Michael in becoming world champion? Only time will tell. But Mick is currently leading the standings in Formula Two this year, and he's done a very good job. So, in that sense, you would think that it would be deserving of him to get a seat in Formula One for next season. So we'll see if Mick Schumacher does land a seat, and as I mentioned earlier, Michael Schumacher, we hope you're continuing to make a speedy recovery, and we really hope to see you soon. And it really would be nice, wouldn't it, to see Michael watch his son in Formula One. That would be a really special feeling. So yeah, so Mick Schumacher could potentially, and also Nikita Mazepin could find themselves at Haas next season. One driver who potentially could miss out on the seat at Haas next season could be Callum Ilott, who is currently second in the drivers' standing. So in a way, in that sense, after what Callum has achieved this year in particular, you may have sympathy for him in missing out in a seat in Formula One, because he's really close to being up there and winning the championship in Formula Two. But if Callum doesn't find a seat in Formula One for next season, then perhaps another season in Formula Two, or even becoming a reserve driver for one Ferrari engine powered Formula One teams could benefit Callum. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on that front. So that's my preview. Looking ahead to the Turkish Grand Prix. So feel free to get in touch in terms of anything you want to discuss Formula One wise. Get in touch with me. I'm at Baggies20 on Twitter, and I'm also at Manish Patel89 on Instagram. And we look forward to a weekend in Turkey, and hopefully we're in for a cracking race at Istanbul Park. Take care, everyone.